I never thought I would hate my mother-in-law so much. But when I saw her on the security footage, I knew there was no turning back. 8 years ago, my husband and I embarked on what I now reflect on as both a journey of transformation and a family saga. It began simply enough. We bought a house in Queensland, but it was more a house in location than in spirit. The vast backyard was nothing but an unending stretch of lawn, monotonous and utterly devoid of charm or shade. In the scorching Queensland summers, it was unbearable. "We have to change this," I said to David, my husband, as we surveyed our new possession. He nodded, his eyes reflecting my thoughts. "Let's make it ours. Let's give it life." Our plan was to plant a variety of native trees, particularly eucalyptus and gum trees. We envisaged transforming the bland lawn into a vibrant bushland, a small sanctuary that whispered of the wild beauty of our country. It was an expensive venture, but we believed in the worth and future joy it would bring. The trouble began when we shared our plans with David's mother, Margaret. Her reaction was far from what we expected. "Native trees? They're just so ugly," she said, her voice laced with contempt. David, usually calm and diplomatic, was taken aback but stood his ground. "Mum, it's our home. We're doing this." Her disapproval was a shadow over our project. Each tree we planted became a silent testament to our defiance. I remember the weight of her disdain like a physical presence, thick in the air as we worked. One evening, after yet another disapproving comment from Margaret, David's frustration was palpable. "She wants us to replace them with a lawn that meets her approval," he said, almost in disbelief. I was indignant. "Are you going to let her dictate what we do with our own home?" He shook his head firmly. "Never. This is our place, our decision." We thought that was the end of it, that she would eventually come to accept our decision. But as we would soon find out, Margaret's disapproval was a precursor to an act that would shake the very foundations of our family relationships and force us to stand up in ways we never imagined. The following weeks were a blur of activity. Our backyard gradually transformed as we planted each sapling with care and hope. I often caught David looking out the window, a satisfied smile playing on his lips as he observed the burgeoning growth of our little bushland. Despite Margaret's disapproval, we felt a deep connection to the land we were nurturing. But the peace was short-lived. Margaret's visits became more frequent, and with each one, her criticism grew sharper. "It looks like a jungle," she would complain. "You're ruining a perfectly good lawn." David, who had always shared a close bond with his mother, found himself in an increasingly difficult position. "Mum, this is important to us," he would respond, his voice tinged with frustration. Her disapproval was a constant, unwelcome guest in our home. It hung in the air, heavy and oppressive, yet David remained steadfast. "This is our home, our choice," he would remind me whenever I felt overwhelmed by the tension. One particularly heated evening, Margaret called, her voice shrill over the phone. "You need to get rid of those trees. They're an eyesore." David's reply was terse, a rare edge to his voice. "Mum, we're not changing anything. The trees stay." I could hear the disbelief in her voice as she spluttered her response. But David ended the call with a firm finality that left no room for argument. Later, as we sat on our porch, the cool evening breeze rustling the leaves of our young trees, David sighed heavily. "I've never seen her this upset, but I won't let her dictate our lives." I reached out, squeezing his hand. "We're doing what's right for us. She'll have to accept it." That night, we went to bed believing the worst was over. We were convinced that Margaret's resistance would eventually wane, that she would come to see the beauty in our choice. Little did we know, the real storm was just on the horizon, one that would test our resolve in ways we never imagined. The morning we discovered the saplings uprooted, the world seemed to stand still. I remember stepping into the backyard, a cup of coffee in hand, and freezing in my tracks. The young trees, our labor of love, were gone. In their place were gaping holes in the earth, a violent testament to an unthinkable act. David joined me, his expression shifting from confusion to shock, then to a simmering anger. Who would do this? His voice was a mix of disbelief and fury. We raced to check the footage from our security cameras, the sinking feeling in my stomach growing with each passing second. The screen flickered to life, revealing the last person we expected, Margaret. There she was, in the harsh light of dawn, ripping out each sapling with a ferocity that belied her age. The drive to her house was tense, each mile stretching longer than the last. David's hands gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. I could feel the anger radiating off him, a stark contrast to the usually composed man I knew. When we arrived, David's father, John, greeted us with a puzzled look. "What's wrong?" he asked, noticing our distressed state. The confrontation that ensued was chaotic. Margaret at first feigned ignorance, but the truth was undeniable. "Why, Mum?" David's voice broke as he confronted her, the security footage playing on his phone. Her justification fell on deaf ears. "I thought I was doing what's best for you," she muttered, but her words sounded hollow, even to her. John's reaction was immediate and fierce. "You did what?" His voice thundered in the small living room. I had never seen him so angry. He turned to us, his expression apologetic. "I'm so sorry, I had no idea." The aftermath was a whirlwind of emotions. John, in a gesture of solidarity, stayed with us for a few weeks, helping to replant the trees. His disappointment in Margaret was evident, a deep chasm that seemed to widen with each passing day. In an unexpected twist, he insisted Margaret pay for new trees. She complied, albeit reluctantly. Together, we replanted our backyard, John's presence a silent apology for his wife's actions. But the most surprising act of defiance came from John himself. Among the new saplings was a rainbow eucalyptus, a majestic tree known for its immense size and vibrant bark. It was his way of making amends, a living symbol of his support for our vision. As we watched the new trees take root, I realized that this incident had changed our family dynamics irreversibly. John's decision to stand with us marked a new chapter in our lives, one where old grievances were overshadowed by new alliances, and where our backyard, once a point of contention, became a symbol of resilience and unity. In the weeks that followed, our home became a refuge for John. He spent long hours helping us nurse the garden back to health, his presence a balm to the wound Margaret's actions had inflicted. Each tree planted was not just a restoration of our vision, but also a subtle mending of the fractures within the family. Margaret, on the other hand, remained conspicuously absent. Her relationship with John grew strained, the tension between them palpable even in her absence. It was clear that the sapling incident had unearthed deeper issues in their marriage, ones that perhaps had been simmering beneath the surface for years. For David and me, the incident was a stark reminder of the importance of standing up for what we believed in. Our backyard, once a barren wasteland, was slowly transforming into the lush sanctuary we had envisioned. The new saplings thrived, and the rainbow eucalyptus in particular became a source of pride. Its vibrant bark stood out against the greenery, a symbol of defiance and resilience. John's decision to stay with us turned into weeks, then months. His marriage to Margaret, once a cornerstone of his life, now seemed like a vestige of the past. He filed for divorce, a decision that shocked everyone, perhaps even himself. But in our garden, among the trees that had caused so much turmoil, he found peace. The impact on our family was profound. The divorce shifted the dynamics in ways we couldn't have anticipated. John's presence in our home brought a new sense of harmony, his wisdom and calmness a steady force in our lives. Margaret's relationship with all of us, especially David, became distant and strained. Her visits ceased entirely, and her absence was a silent testament to the consequences of her actions. As the trees grew, so did our bonds. John, once merely my father-in-law, became a mentor and friend. Our conversations, often held under the shade of the growing eucalyptus, ranged from the mundane to the profound. He shared stories of his youth, his marriage, and his hopes for the future. The garden became our sanctuary, a place where the troubles of the world seemed distant and muted. It was in this newfound peace that I realized the true meaning of home. It wasn't just about the walls and the roof. It was about the life we cultivated within and around it. Our little bushland, born from a vision of beauty and resistance, had become the heart of our home, a testament to the enduring power of nature and the strength of family bonds forged in adversity. The years that followed were a time of quiet healing and growth, both for our family and for our garden. John, now a permanent resident in our granny flat, became an integral part of our daily lives. His divorce from Margaret had been a painful, yet necessary closure to a chapter that no longer served him. He often said the trees were his companions in this new phase of life, each one a testament to resilience and renewal. Margaret's absence was a shadow that lingered, yet it became less oppressive over time. David's relationship with her was forever altered. The bonds of filial piety were strained, and their interactions became infrequent and formal. It was a loss, but in many ways a necessary one for the health and harmony of our own family unit. Our garden, meanwhile, flourished. The rainbow eucalyptus, once a small sapling, now stood tall and proud, its trunk a vivid tapestry of colors. It was the crown jewel of our backyard, a living symbol of defiance and beauty. Visitors often marveled at it, unaware of the deep story it held within its vibrant bark. As the garden matured, so did our understanding of what it meant to stand up for what we believe in. The trees were more than just plants. They were a reflection of our values, our resilience, and our commitment to carving out our own path. Our once bland and unremarkable backyard had transformed into a lush, vibrant haven, a space that provided not just physical shade but emotional shelter. John, in his quiet way, became the guardian of our garden. He tended to the plants with a dedication that spoke of his gratitude and love. In the tranquility of the garden, he found a sense of purpose and peace that had eluded him in the later years of his marriage. And as for Margaret, she remained an outsider to this world we had created. She never set foot in our backyard again, her pride and stubbornness keeping her at a distance. It was a sad, yet inevitable consequence of her actions. In the end, our family story was not just about conflict and strife, but about growth and healing. It was a narrative of breaking away from toxic patterns and finding strength in unity and understanding. Our garden was a living testament to this journey, each tree a chapter in our family's story, rooted deep in the soil of our shared experiences. Years have passed since the saplings were first planted, and our garden has transformed into a lush, thriving ecosystem. The trees, once fragile and young, now stand tall and robust, their canopies providing a cool, leafy refuge from the world outside. The rainbow eucalyptus, with its colorful bark, has grown into a majestic presence, a focal point that draws the eye and soothes the soul. John's presence in the granny flat has become a natural part of our lives. His involvement in our daily routines and his contributions to the garden have deepened our relationship. He often jokes that he's more a gardener than a resident, but his eyes always hold a glint of contentment when he says it. As for Margaret, time has softened the sharp edges of our conflict. David and I have reached a cordial understanding with her, though the intimacy of the past remains lost. She has become more a distant relative than an integral part of our family, a consequence of her actions that she seems to have accepted, albeit reluctantly. Our garden has become a symbol of our family's journey. It's a place where we've celebrated milestones, shared quiet moments of reflection, and found solace during times of sorrow. The trees, each with their own story, have been silent witnesses to the ebbs and flows of our lives. In this space, I often find myself reflecting on the lessons we've learned, the importance of standing up for what you believe in, the strength found in unity, and the resilience required to grow and adapt. Our garden, with its diverse flora, mirrors the diversity and complexity of our family's journey. As I walk among the trees, I feel a deep sense of connection to the earth and to the story we have written here. It's a narrative that speaks of healing, growth, and the enduring power of nature. The garden has taught us that even in the face of adversity, there is always an opportunity for new growth, for change, and for beauty to emerge. In many ways, our garden is a reflection of life itself, unpredictable, ever-changing, and rich with possibilities. It stands as a testament to what can be achieved when you plant the seeds of hope and nurture them with love and perseverance. As I look at the thriving greenery around me, I am reminded that in every challenge there is a chance to grow, to flourish, and to create something truly beautiful.